Hello, my sparklies. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be doing a drill to work on the range of motion of our hip lifts. For this one, I do recommend some equipment. If you don't have it, you don't have to have it. You can still do the drill. But if you happen to have a Pilates sponge ball, this is one of my favorite things to use. If you take classes with me, I tend to use this guy a lot. I love him. It's about a 9 to 10 inch squishy rubber ball that's not inflated all the way. You can also use a yoga block or even a rolled up towel if it's really fluffy. Because what we're going to do is we're going to place it either between our knees or between our thighs. So we need something to hold, to press in there. If you don't have anything, that's okay. You can totally do this without. But by adding this, it's just going to add a little extra oomph. Also for this one, you may want something for balance. So we're going to be standing with our hands on something. You can have your hands on the wall. You can have your hands on your kitchen counter, the back of a couch, your desk. Doesn't matter. It just needs to be something except maybe not your swivel chair at the desk. That might not be good for balance. If you want to test your balance, we don't have to have anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our feet hip width apart. We're going to take your ball, yoga block, towel, whatever we decide to use, if we're using anything, and either put it between your knees or maybe more between your thighs. I like it about halfway between my thighs. You want to make sure that your toes are pointing forward. Now typically we dance with our feet hip width apart, but depending on the shape of your body, the shape of your bones, and the size of whatever you have in between, you may find that your legs are a little closer or a little bit wider. It should be subtle, whatever it is, so it's not a big deal. We're going to get into our dance posture. So I recommend starting with two hands on whatever you're using for balance. I'm going to be open a little bit just so that way you can see what my hips are doing. You're welcome to use one hand, two hands, no hands, up to you. So what we're going to do with our feet pointing forward, roughly hip width, actively pressing in on that ball. I'm going to soften my knees, drop my tailbone, roll the shoulders down and back. So our basic dance posture. We know this, right? So our knees have to be soft and our weight has to be back on those heels so we can move our hips. So the way that I do hip lifts is I use my obliques. That's where I generally power them from. So to find our obliques, we're going to take your pinky finger and find your hip bone, this bony part underneath the smush. And then take your thumb and you're going to find the bottom of your rib cage. I'll get a little closer so you can see. So I have hip bone, rib cage. So this squishy part here in the middle, that's the part we're going to be working on. We're going to be working with this. So find that squishy part right in here, in between the bones. Soften those knees. And I'm going to bring this hip bone up to the rib cage. And then on the other side, bring the hip bone up to the rib cage. So hands can be on the chair. Where we're flat-footed, you may not need anything on the chair. I am going to have one hand open just so you can see. I want you to work very slowly and think about how big of a hip lift you can get. Notice that hip comes up and in. It's coming into that oblique because you're contracting that oblique in. So up and in. The head should stay right where it is, right where it is. Take your time with this. How often do we take our time with this move? Not very often. We tend to focus on doing it either very sharp and or very quickly, which is great. That's a great drill to do too. But it's great to work on just that range of motion. You can do this as much or as little as you want. If you'd like to test your balance, what we can do, once again, I would recommend having two hands on your chair for support. We're going to soften those knees. Keep the head right where it is and lift those heels off the ground. Now, if you have any foot or ankle issues and your feet, ankles, legs don't like this, don't do it. Just stay flat. Totally fine. But if you want to practice it, we can bring those heels up. I have lots of training in ballet and modern dance, so I have a naturally high arch. I can get my heels pretty high off the floor. This is very comfortable for me. You do not have to have your heels that high up. As long as they're off the ground, you can practice your balance wherever you happen to be. So, but if we start in our dance posture and lift those heels up, my head stays right where it is. I'm engaging my abs. I'm zipping up my skinny jean muscles and dropping that tailbone back. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to bring that hip up into the rib cage and hip up into the rib cage. At the same time, I'm pressing in on that ball. Why are we pressing in on the ball? Two reasons. Particularly when we're up on our heels, we want to make sure that our hips, that our knees are tracking to the front because that's better for our body, right? If you take the ball out, sometimes we get a little side to side, and then the first thing that happens is my booty comes out and I start going to side, and now I'm like twisting really weird. Not great for your body. So with the ball here, pressing in on that ball, it's going to make sure that those knees are coming straight forward as the hips go forward. The other thing is that by pressing in on that ball, we are activating our inner thigh muscles. Most of our belly dancing is done with our booty and our outer thigh muscles. That's just the way the movements that we do tend to call for a lot of outside muscles. We don't use as many of the inside muscles. So to stay balanced, it's good to train the inside ones to help prevent injury. So we're balanced all the way around our legs and our hips. Take a rest. Shake it up. All right, couple of tips. All right, you can stay here. You can lift those heels up wherever you want to be. If your heels are up, I recommend both hands on the chair. All right? So we're going to lift and drop that tailbone, shoulders down and back. If you'd like to go a little faster, we can go boom, boom, boom. But try to keep that range of motion. See how high up you can get that hip. Up and in, up and in. If you want to test your balance, take the hands off the chair. If your feet don't like this, come down onto your heels. Keep the heels down on the floor or keep them up. It's not both. Check it out. I can actually from the back. Okay, balance. There we go. Notice my heels stay up. They move a little bit because they're connected to my hips, but I'm not pumping my heels. I'm not pumping the legs. I'm powering this move from my obliques, right? You can also practice, let's add a glute squeeze. Let's go glute squeeze. So I'm still using oblique, and then I'm popping that glute at the end to add a little pop. Pop. Now make sure you're still coming up and in, and you don't start going boom, boom. This is a great move. It's just not what we're working on right now. We're working on a hip lift, or sometimes called a piston hip. I don't do cars, so I like hip lift. Lift, lift, lift. Beautiful. Bring it down. Let's stretch it out a little bit. Take this out. These are great drills to take with your own music and do it whenever the mood strikes you. But it's going to work on stretching and strengthening those oblique and those hip muscles to get your hip lifts really big. Then as you go faster, they're going to get smaller. So if your hip lift is small to begin with, and then it goes really fast, it gets really tiny. If you have a great big hip lift, and then you start shrinking it to go faster, it's still going to be big. So that way, the old grandma in the very back row, because naturally she sits in the back row, that way she can still see your hip lifts. So quick stretching. Let's stretch our calves out. I'm going to put one heel forward. I'm going to bend my supporting leg, stick my chest forward. Ooh, so I have a nice flat back, right? I'm not rounded. It feels like you're sticking your butt out in order to get it flat. Good. Now let's do the other side. Bring up the toes, sit into it, flat back. Stretch from the tip of your head to the tip of your tailbone. Beautiful. Then let's stretch those obliques out. So I'm going to put one foot on top of the other. If this is my left foot, I don't know what foot I'm on. I'm going to put the same hand here. Reach this one up. Send the energy from this hip down into the ground. The hand comes up and over. So I'm not letting my hips swing out to the side. I'm keeping it up as I reach over. You can stay right here or leave the hips and reach forward to that front corner. Beautiful. You can either rotate the shoulders down or you can stay at more of an angle, whatever feels best. Inhale, bring it up. And the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to put the arch of the foot over the other one. Hand comes straight up, drop the shoulder, let the hip sink down as the arm comes up and straight over. Keep the hip over the ankle. There we go. That's the hip over the shoulder. That would be, then you'd be upside down. And if you want, we can reach it forward to that front corner. And you can either bring the shoulders parallel with the ground, or you could stay at that angle, whatever feels good. Bring it up. Inhale. Exhale down. All right. Hope you enjoy that. I hope you can feel those obliques being nice and warm. Give it a shot. Play with it. Let me know what you think. If you have another move that you would like to drill and break down and get a little deeper into, please let me know, and I will do it in one of my next newsletters. Thanks, everyone.